motion, and this is a motion on tree planting along the roadsides and road reserves. And Madam Speaker, aware that Article 42 of the Constitution accords every person a right to a clean and healthy environment, and that Article 9, 1D, also mandates the state to encourage public participation in the management, protection, and conservation of the environment, and further aware that deforestation is one of the main contributors to climate change, noting that Kenya has not been spared by the effects of global warming and climate change as a result of deforestation, among other aspects. Also aware that the road network in the country currently stands at approximately 177,800 kilometers, with a development rate of around 600 kilometers per annum, and deeply concerned that there has been persistent destruction of trees and vegetation along the road reserves and roadsides during the road construction efforts, leading to adverse effects on the ecosystem, and also cognizant of the fact that studies have shown that the benefits of the benefits accumulated from roadside tree planting include better soil formation due to the shedding of dead leaves, increased water quality by reducing the sediment flow, reduced erosion, road beautification, flood control as the trees slow and absorb water runoff, wind breaking, and providing important pollinator habitats, improving people's health and protecting crops. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the government includes a component of tree planting in all road network designs, and also makes it compulsory for road contractors to replace any tree harvested during road construction upon completion of the project. Now, Madam Speaker, this motion could not have come at a better time. The world is coming out of Egypt for the COP summit. And Madam Speaker, the effects of drought, the effects of climate change are clear for everyone to see. Today we are talking about a drought situation in this country, Madam Speaker. We are talking of the effects of the adverse results of climate change, including drought, lack of water, and all the other issues that come with it. Madam Speaker, I hail from a city called Nairobi City County. And the history of Nairobi City County is very well associated to the story of climate change, flooding, El Nino, and La Nina. Madam Speaker, when this republic was being formed, the colonizers were looking for a place where they could place a capital city. At that time, they were not looking for a capital city to be a commercial center. They were looking for a place where they could place the headquarters for the railway line. The British were constructing a railway line coming all the way from the coast of Mombasa, looking for their ways into the hinterland to a place called Uganda. And when they were doing this, they wanted a person who can set up a city. And they identified a place called Masaku. And they said that Masaku looks like a good place to put a capital city. And Masaku was going to be the capital city of a republic called Kenya. They dispatched a young man by the name of Ainsworth, who was a district commissioner. He must have been around 20-something years old, and started setting up a city in Masaku. But these Mzungus, on their way up to the escarpment, came across a small, swampy, flat land. Then there was a small market called Kanyonyo, around and about where this parliament sits, today. And they saw it to be a flat, beautiful area, and they thought this would be a good place to construct the city. And so they changed the plans and decided, instead of putting up the city in Masaku, they decided to put it up where Nairobi sits today. At that point, they were looking for the cool waters coming from Kikuyu Springs. They were looking for the provisions of food that would come from the northern sides. And they thought that the eastern sides, where Kangundo now is and Embakasi, would be a good place for people and workers in the railway to set up their houses. And so Ainsworth started designing a city called Nairobi. Ainsworth was informed by the model of the apartheid movement then. And he drew a city, the capital city, the CBD, in a grid formation all the way down to Grogan Road, and decided to set up the high-end areas for living in Lavington, Kileleshwa, Kilimani, decided that the Asians can reside across the river in Ngara, High Range, Parklands, and Westlands, and decided that the natives, the Africans, can be set up somewhere around Modhurwa so that they can get their provisions on the northern side and the eastern side around Kangundo. And they set up a city. What they did not know is that they were setting up a city in the time of La Nina. Soon after, the colonialists were to regret when the El Nino rains started beating the city. Immediately, Ainsworth realized that Nairobi was actually an undrainable quantities larger than any other tree. And Ainsworth set upon planting blue gum trees in this city. And he planted so many of them, Madam Speaker. If you walk down to a place called the National Theatre or the Norfolk, you can see the relics of these trees. Big, massive trees, probably 100 and something years old. But Ainsworth did not stop at the city. He set up to planting these trees along the roads. If you see Ngong Road, before the expansion, it was lined with many trees going all the way to Karen. If you look at Waiyaki Way, there were trees lining up Waiyaki Way on both ways, on both sides of the road. Around the State House area and Arboretum area, these trees have been there for more than a century. Madam Speaker, in our recent efforts to construct roads, we have cut all the trees that Ainsworth planted over a century ago. Of course, Madam Speaker, with new technology, we have also, with new science, we have also come to learn that there are some trees that are not good for the environment. This blue gum tree and the eucalyptus being one of those trees. However, the efforts of the founders of this city were noble. The efforts were well informed. In fact, beyond the blue gum tree, Nairobi had trees planted all over the place. When I was growing up, I remember back then the Goreti constituency would span all the way from Gigiri all the way to near Kikuyu. And this was the green side of the city. Beautiful tree cover. I remember going to school, James Gishuru Road used to have this beautiful canopy of trees, jacaranda trees. It was amazing when the full bloom was in season. Beautiful jacaranda, purple flowered trees lining James Gishuru's road all the way from Waiyaki Way to Dagureti Corner. Beautiful trees. But what has happened, Madam Speaker? With the construction of roads, these trees are being felled. And in fact, no one even knows where the timber has been going. What has happened as we are building the roads, we have cut out all the greenery. We have cut out all the trees. The effects, we are feeling them. The city is way hotter. The city is way drier. The city is less beautiful. What used to be the green city in the sun, Nairobi, is no more. Madam Speaker, what has happened to Nairobi has happened to almost every other urban center in this country and beyond. That today, even landmarks, because back then trees were beautiful landmarks around the area of Hurlingham. You remember, you would see beautiful trees. No one even knew where DOD was because DOD used to be well covered with trees. Today, buildings are exposed, homes are exposed, installments and government buildings are exposed, but with it comes many other issues, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the import of this motion is to move this House to agree with me that we can put it in law that every contractor who has been contracted to build a road can actually plant trees at the end of their contract. It can even be put in law that the quantity of trees that need to be planted per kilometer. Madam Speaker, when I was moving this motion, I did say that we are building roads at the pace of 600 kilometers per annum. You can imagine 600 kilometers of road covered with a canopy of trees on both sides, how much afforestation we can be doing per year. Madam Speaker, roads can become a corridor for focus area in afforestation. Roadside trees will make a significant improvement, Madam Speaker, to the quality of roads and the quality of our environment, Madam Speaker. The mess that is caused by cutting a tree here can be felt as far downstream as at the river and beyond. People do not know the concept of the oneness of existence, that today you can mess up a water catchment area in Karura and the effects will be felt in Katonzweni, that you can block a waterway in Kikuyu and the person who will suffer is somewhere in Sultan Hamud. The oneness of existence, Madam Speaker, that if we were to be our brother's keepers, we can start by planting a tree. That today, planting one tree here is going to save a life somewhere far downstream than you can even imagine. Madam Speaker, it is a great man, Martin Luther King, who told us that we should be our brother's keeper. But if we should not be our brother's keeper, Martin Luther King tells us, if you cannot be your brother's keepers, at least don't be your brother's executor. Anyone cutting a tree is a brother or sister's executor, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, even the children in the gallery today will tell you the benefits of planting a tree. They will tell you that when you plant a tree, you are able to bind the soil with some organic matter. We have scientists in this chamber, Madam Speaker. I see the Honorable Professor Lillian Gogo. She will tell you that the benefits of planting a tree go beyond beautification. They go beyond the aesthetic properties of having a beautiful and green city. She will tell you that when you plant a tree, you are aiding and enhancing the infiltration of water retention in the soils, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, without being verbose, I'm just requesting this House and the honorable members who are here this afternoon to just agree with me that it would be in order for us as a House to be not only our brothers and our sisters' keeper, but the preservers of our environment by proposing that we put it in law that every contractor who is awarded a contract, in the course of their contract, will not get paid the full payment until they have met the threshold of reforestation by planting back the trees that they have cut and by meeting the threshold that will be set by this new law of tree planting by contractors in road construction. Madam Speaker, with those very many remarks and a trip down history lane, I would like to move the motion on the afforestation and planting of roads along the roadsides and road reserves. And by moving it, I want to call upon the very esteemed ranking member, the Honorable Wanjiko Mohea, representing the people of Kipipiri, to second this motion. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The member for Kipipiri.